The Diplomatic Station 7 orbited silently around Earth, its sleek metal surface reflecting the pale blue glow of humanity's home world. Inside, Captain Sarah Chen paced the corridors, her boots making soft tapping sounds against the polished floor. Today was supposed to be a regular diplomatic meeting with the Zaxians, Earth's newest alien allies. Instead, it would become the day that changed everything. The Zaxian ambassador, Terex, waited in the main conference room. His tall, slender frame towered over the human furniture, and his silver skin shimmered under the artificial lights. Sarah took a deep breath and entered the room, ready for another routine discussion about trade routes and cultural exchange programs. Ambassador Terex, Sarah greeted with a polite nod. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." The alien's face remained expressionless, but Sarah noticed something different in his four eyes. They weren't their usual calm purple, they had turned a deep, stormy red. "Captain Chen," Terex's voice was unusually cold. "We have received disturbing information. Your people have been secretly building weapons in the Mars colony." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The Mars colony was strictly for scientific research, or at least, that's what she had always been told. "There must be some mistake," she said carefully. "The Mars colony is a peaceful. Do not lie to me." Terex's voice boomed through the room. He slammed a device onto the table, and a hologram appeared, showing images of massive underground facilities filled with warships and weapons. Sarah stared at the images in shock. They were real. She could tell from the Earth Alliance markings on the ships. But why hadn't she been informed? She was one of the highest-ranking officers in the diplomatic corps. "Ambassador, I swear to you, I knew nothing about this," Sarah said, her mind racing. "Let me contact Earth Command. There must be an explanation." But when she tried to use her communicator, there was only static. She looked out the window and saw hundreds of Zaxian warships appearing out of hyperspace, their weapons already charged. "The time for talk is over," Terex said, his voice filled with sadness and anger. "We trusted humans, believed you were different from the other violent species we've encountered. We were wrong." The station's alarm system suddenly blared to life. Red emergency lights flashed as crews rushed to their stations. Sarah's communicator finally crackled with a message from Earth. "El Diplomat CPRSONAL, EV8CUAT. I'm NEDIAKLI. This is not a drill. ZAXIN Fleet APP watching Earth. War is imminent." Sarah looked at Terex, who she had considered a friend for the past 2 years. "Please," she begged, "let me fix this. We can still prevent a war." The ambassador's eyes softened for a moment. "I wish we could, Sarah Chen, but my superiors have made their decision. You have 1 hour to evacuate the station before we destroy it." As Sarah rushed to organize the evacuation, her mind was filled with questions. Who had authorized the secret weapons program? Why hadn't the diplomatic corps been informed? And most importantly, could anyone stop this war before it was too late? Within minutes, escape pods were launching from the station, carrying terrified human diplomats and staff toward Earth. Sarah stayed behind until the last pod was ready, making sure everyone else got out safely. As she strapped herself into the final escape pod, she looked one last time at Terex through the station's window. The ambassador stood there, watching her leave, his eyes now a deep blue, the Zaxian color of mourning. The pod launched, and Sarah watched as the diplomatic station, a symbol of peace between humans and Zaxians, grew smaller behind her. Earth loomed ahead, beautiful and vulnerable, as the Zaxian fleet moved into attack position. This was just the beginning. Sarah knew that when she reached Earth, she would have to find answers, and fast, because right now, she might be the only person who could prevent this unexpected war from destroying both their species. Sarah's escape pod crashed into the Atlantic Ocean with a mighty splash. As rescue ships rushed toward her location, she couldn't stop thinking about the strange markings she had noticed on some of the weapons in Terex's hologram images. They weren't quite right, something about them seemed off. The rescue team pulled her from the water, and within hours she found herself in the Earth Defense Command Center beneath New Washington. The massive underground facility buzzed with activity as military personnel rushed to prepare for the coming Zaxian attack. "Captain Chen, explain exactly what happened up there," General Rodriguez demanded. He was a tall man with grey hair and cybernetic eyes that glowed faintly blue. But before Sarah could answer, an aide burst into the room. "Sir, the Zaxians aren't attacking Earth directly. They're targeting something in the asteroid belt." Everyone rushed to the main screen. Sure enough, the Zaxian fleet had bypassed Earth completely and was heading toward a cluster of asteroids between Mars and Jupiter. Sarah stepped closer to the screen, her eyes widening. "Those aren't normal asteroids," she whispered. "Look at their movement pattern. They're too regular." The general's cybernetic eyes whirred as they zoomed in on the scene. "My God," he muttered. "Those are camouflaged ships, but they're not ours." Suddenly, the mysterious ships shed their rocky disguises, revealing sleek black vessels unlike anything human or Zaxian. As they emerged, they started firing at both the Zaxian fleet and Earth's defense satellites. "It's a third party," Sarah realized. "They've been playing us against each other." She quickly explained about the strange markings she had noticed in the hologram. Those weren't Earth Alliance symbols. They were forgeries. The general's face hardened. But who would want to start a war between us and the Zaxians? Before anyone could respond, the black ships launched something toward Earth, thousands of small dark objects that looked like seeds. "Unknown objects entering Earth's atmosphere," someone shouted. "They're spreading across all continents." Sarah grabbed a tablet and started analyzing the object's trajectory. Her blood ran cold when she saw the pattern. "They're not weapons," she said. "They're some kind of biological delivery system. These things are planting themselves in our major agricultural zones." The general slammed his fist on the table. "Get me a secure channel to the Zaxian fleet. They need to know they've been tricked. We're both under attack." But the communication systems were jammed. As they watched helplessly, the mysterious black ships engaged both human and Zaxian forces in a devastating battle. Meanwhile, on Earth, the first of the alien seeds began to sprout, pushing through soil with metallic tendrils that glowed with an eerie purple light. Sarah stared at the chaos unfolding both in space and on Earth's surface. Something clicked in her mind. She had seen those purple lights before in classified reports about a long-lost civilization that had supposedly seeded the galaxy with hidden weapons millions of years ago. "The precursors," she breathed. "They're not as extinct as everyone thought." The general turned to her sharply. "What do you know about the precursors?" "Not much," Sarah admitted, "but I know someone who does." She pulled out her personal communicator and entered a code she had hoped never to use. "We need to find Dr. Marcus Zhang. He's been studying precursor artifacts in secret for years, and he warned me this day might come." As emergency alarms blared throughout the facility, Sarah knew they were running out of time. They had to find Dr. Zhang, contact the Zaxians, and figure out how to stop these ancient beings from reclaiming their galaxy, starting with Earth. Dr. Marcus Zhang's secret laboratory turned out to be hidden in plain sight, inside an old arcade in Tokyo. Sarah and General Rodriguez found him playing an ancient game called Space Invaders, his weathered hands moving quickly over the controls. "I was wondering when you'd come," Dr. Zhang said without turning around. His silver hair glowed in the dim arcade lights. "The purple lights in the sky, they're getting brighter, aren't they?" Sarah stepped forward. "You knew this would happen. Why didn't you warn us?" Dr. Zhang finally turned to face them, revealing a face marked with strange, faintly glowing symbols. "I did warn you. I sent reports for years. But who wants to believe that the most advanced civilization in galaxy history faked their own extinction to test their children?" "Their children?" General Rodriguez asked. "Us, the Zaxians. Every spacefaring race," Zhang explained, leading them to a hidden elevator. "The precursors seeded the galaxy with life. then watch from the shadows to see which species would be worthy of their legacy. The elevator descended deep underground, opening into a vast chamber filled with pulsing purple technology. In the center stood a massive crystal structure that seemed to bend light around it. "This is their testing device," Zhang said. "The precursors left these on every world they seeded, those seeds being planted across Earth right now. They're connecting to form a neural network. Soon they'll judge our worth." "Judge us how?" Sarah asked, though she feared she knew the answer. A holographic display activated, showing scenes from human history, wars, environmental destruction, but also acts of kindness, scientific achievements, and peace treaties. "The Zaxians are being tested too," Zhang revealed. "Those black ships aren't attacking us, they're herding both our species together. The precursors want to see if we'll unite or destroy each other." Suddenly, Sarah's communicator crackled to life. Through the static, she heard a familiar voice, Terex. "Sarah Chen, if you can hear this, we found the same symbols. On our world, we need to." The transmission cut off. The ground shook as more seeds fell from the sky. On John's monitors, they could see the purple tendrils spreading, connecting, forming complex patterns across Earth's surface. "We don't have much time," Zhang said, placing his hand on the crystal structure. It hummed to life, projecting a complex series of coordinates. "These are the locations of every testing device on both Earth and Zaxian Prime. If we can activate them simultaneously, we might be able to communicate with the precursors directly." "And if we fail?" the general asked. Zhang's face darkened. "Then both our species fail a test, and the precursors will start over with new children." Sarah looked at the coordinates, then at her communicator. They needed to reach Terex, coordinate with the Zaxians, and activate multiple ancient devices across 2 worlds, all while purple tendrils reshaping their planets. "How long do we have?" she asked. Zhang pointed to the crystal, where a countdown had appeared. 48 hours. That's how long until the neural network is complete and judgment begins. Sarah squared her shoulders. "Then we better get started. General, we need your fastest ships." "And Dr. Zhang," she paused, looking at his glowing facial markings. "What aren't you telling us about those symbols on your face?" Zhang smiled mysteriously. "Let's just say, I've been preparing for this test for longer than you know. Much longer." The crystal pulsed brighter, and somewhere above them, the black ships continued their strange dance through space, preparing both humanity and the Zaxians for a test that would determine the fate of both species. Time was running out. With just 36 hours left, Sarah found herself aboard the fastest ship in Earth's fleet, the ESS Thunderbolt, racing toward the Zaxian homeworld. Dr. Zhang sat in the corner, his facial markings glowing brighter with each passing hour, while he spoke in an ancient language to the ship's A. "The ship, it understands him," one of the crew members whispered in awe. Suddenly, the ship's engines pulsed with the same purple light as Zhang's markings, and their speed doubled. Sarah stared at the old scientist. "You're one of them, aren't you? A precursor?" "Not exactly," Zhang replied, his voice echoing strangely. "I'm what you might call a backup system, insurance in case the test went wrong." He touched his face where the symbols burned brightest. "These aren't just markings, they're a key to awakening dormant precursor technology." The ship's sensors blared. 3 black vessels appeared, surrounding them. But instead of attacking, they created a tunnel of swirling energy. "A shortcut," Zhang explained. "They're helping us reach the Zaxians faster." As they emerged from the portal, the Zaxian homeworld loomed before them, but it was nothing like the images Sarah had seen in briefings. The entire planet pulsed with networks of purple light, far more advanced than Earth's growing tendrils. "They're ahead of schedule," Zhang muttered worriedly. "The neural network is almost complete here." A Zaxian ship approached, and Terex's voice came through clearly. "Captain Chen, Dr. Zhang, thank the stars you've made it. We've discovered something disturbing." Minutes later, they stood in the Zaxian Central Command, where Terex showed them a massive underground chamber similar to Zhang's lab. But here, the crystal structure was fully activated, projecting images that made Sarah's blood run cold. "These aren't tests," Terex said grimly. "They're transformation protocols. The precursors aren't judging us. They're trying to merge our species into something new." Zhang's markings flashed rapidly. Of course, he breathed. The ultimate test of cooperation, literal unity. The chamber's walls displayed the process, human and Zaxian DNA strands intertwining, guided by the purple tendrils, creating a hybrid species that could survive in any environment. "Is this what you want?" Sarah demanded of Zhang. "To force our evolution." "What I want doesn't matter," Zhang replied, his form starting to shimmer. "I'm just the messenger. The choice must be yours." Trex stepped forward, his four eyes shifting through colors rapidly. "We found records in our crystal. If either species refuses, the transformation becomes mandatory. The tendrils will rewrite our DNA by force." Sarah looked at the countdown, 24 hours remaining. "There has to be another way." "Dr. Zhang, you said you were insurance. Insurance against what?" Before Zhang could answer, the black ships appeared in the skies above, taking new positions. The crystal structures on both worlds pulsed in sync, and Zhang's form became increasingly transparent. "My role," he said, his voice now barely human, "was to ensure the children had a choice. The precursors believed in evolution through cooperation, not force. But something went wrong. The testing protocol became corrupted. His body began to dissolve into points of light. Find the original protocol. It's hidden in plain sight, just like my lab. Look to the games, the simple games that teach cooperation." With that, Zhang vanished completely, leaving behind only a small pulsing crystal that looked remarkably like an old arcade token. Sarah picked it up, her mind racing back to the Space Invaders game in Zhang's arcade. "Trex," she said slowly, "how do your people feel about vintage video games?" The alien diplomat's eyes turned a curious shade of green. "What exactly are you thinking, Captain Chen?" Above them, the purple networks grew stronger, and somewhere in the vastness of space, the true architects of their species' destiny waited to see if their children would find the right way to play their cosmic game. The old arcade cabinet hummed to life in the Zaxian Command Center, its screen flickering with familiar pixelated aliens marching across the screen. Sarah inserted Zhang's crystal token, while Terex awkwardly held the second joystick with his elongated fingers. "I still don't understand," one of the Zaxian scientists said. "How can this primitive entertainment device contain the original protocol?" "Because it's hiding in plain sight," Sarah replied, watching the game start. "Think about it. Space Invaders, a game about aliens attacking Earth. But what if it's not about fighting them off? What if it's about learning to understand their pattern?" As they played, something extraordinary happened. The pixelated graphics began shifting into precursor symbols, identical to those that had marked Lang's face. The purple tendrils throughout both planets pulsed in sync with the game's rhythm. "Look." Trek's eyes flashed yellow with excitement. "The invaders, they're not attacking. They're dancing." He was right. The aliens' movement pattern wasn't random. It was a complex mathematical sequence, a cosmic ballet that the players had to join rather than disrupt. Sarah and Terex began moving their ships in harmony with the invaders instead of shooting them. The game responded, the pixels transforming into streams of pure light that shot out from the cabinet and connected with the crystal structures on both worlds. Suddenly, every screen, every device, every piece of technology on both planets displayed the same message in ancient precursor script. Dr. Zhang's voice echoed from them all. The true test was never about fighting or merging. It was about finding harmony in difference, separate notes creating a greater symphony. The black ships above began a new formation, not herding anymore but dancing, weaving a pattern between Earth and the Zaxian homeworld. The purple tendrils responded, their purpose shifting from transformation to communication. They're becoming bridges, T-Rex realized, not to change us, but to connect us. The crystal structures pulsed one final time, and a new option appeared, not forced evolution, but voluntary cooperation. The tendrils could be used to share knowledge, culture, and understanding between the species while allowing each to maintain their unique identity. Sarah looked at the countdown timer. It had transformed into a musical staff, playing an endless melody of human and Zaxian tones interweaving. "We never needed to become one species," she said, understanding at last. "We just needed to learn to play together in the cosmic orchestra." T-Rex's eyes shifted to a deep gold, the color of profound realization. The precursors didn't want us to merge. They wanted us to understand that diversity itself is the greatest strength in the universe. The arcade cabinet powered down, but not before ejecting Zhang's token, now transformed into a key that would allow both species to control the bridge network. A gift from their mysterious predecessors, tools for building a future neither species could have imagined alone. Above them, the black ships began to disappear, their work complete. But in the space between worlds, the bridges remained, pulsing with possibility, ready to carry both civilizations into a new age of cooperation and discovery. Sarah looked at T-Rex and smiled. "Want to play another round? I think we finally learned the rules of the game." The Zaxian diplomat's eyes sparkled with all the colors of his species' emotions at once. "Indeed, Captain Chen. Though next time, perhaps we should try Pac-Man." 1 year later, the Earth-Zaxian Cultural Exchange Center floated in space exactly halfway between both worlds. Its design was unlike anything either species had created before, a massive structure shaped like an ancient arcade cabinet, with bridges of purple light streaming from its sides, connecting to both planets. Sarah stood at its heart, the transformed arcade token now embedded in a control panel that merged human and Zaxian technology. The panel hummed with the same musical tones they had discovered in the game, each note representing millions of conversations flowing between the species. "Captain Chen," T-Rex called out, entering the control room. "You need to see this. The bridges, they're starting to sing." Together, they watched as the purple light bridges began resonating with new frequencies. Patterns emerged in their glow, forming what looked like DNA strands, but not the forced merger they had once feared. Instead, the strands danced around each other, never touching, creating beautiful harmonies. "More messages from the precursors?" Sarah asked. "Better." T-Rex's eyes shifted to a new color Sarah had never seen before, a swirling rainbow that indicated a discovery beyond their current emotional spectrum. "The bridges are becoming aware. They're learning from every interaction between our species, creating art." On the main screen, they could see it happening. Every cultural exchange, every shared scientific discovery, every friendship formed between humans and Zaxians was being transformed into pure energy, feeding the bridges. The purple tendrils that had once threatened to force their evolution were now growing into something entirely new, a living library of both species' combined experiences. Then something unexpected happened. The arcade token in the control panel began to pulse, and Dr. Zhang's voice echoed one last time. "The true game begins." The center's walls became transparent, revealing the vast space around them. But instead of empty blackness, they saw colors and patterns that had never existed before, a new spectrum of reality that only the combined perspectives of humans and Zaxians could perceive. "The bridges," Sarah gasped. "They're not just connecting our worlds, they're revealing everything in between." T-Rex manipulated the controls with his 4 hands, bringing up readings that confirmed the impossible. The space between species, it's full of life we couldn't see before, life that exists in the harmonies between different forms of existence. Creatures of pure energy danced in the new spectrum, beings that had always been there but required both human and Zaxian perception to witness. The arcade center had become more than a cultural exchange point. It was a window into a higher dimension of reality. Sarah looked at the old Space Invaders cabinet they had preserved in the center's museum wing. All this time, she mused, we thought we were learning to play together, but we were really learning to see together. Trek's eyes swirled with understanding. The precursors didn't create the bridges, he said. They showed us how to grow them ourselves. And now we're ready for the next level, Sarah finished, watching as more of the energy beings gathered around their station, curious about these two species who had finally learned to look between the pixels of reality. The transformed arcade token pulsed one final time, and new games appeared in the museum wing, games that could only be played by humans and Zaxians together, games that would teach them how to navigate this newly visible realm between worlds. The unexpected war had become an unexpected awakening, and somewhere in the harmonies between species, the true adventure was just beginning. 10 years later, on the anniversary of what history now called the Arcade Awakening, Sarah stood before a gathering of humans, Zaxians, and several shimmering energy beings who had chosen to become ambassadors to the physical realm. The Earth-Zaxian Cultural Exchange Center had grown into a vast network of arcade-shaped stations, each one a window into new dimensions of reality. But today was special. Dr. Zhang's final gift was about to be revealed. For a decade, Sarah addressed the crowd, her voice translated simultaneously into Zaxian harmonics and energy being wavelengths. We thought the story ended with discovering life between dimensions. We were wrong. That was just the tutorial level. Trex, now Supreme Coordinator of Interdimensional Relations, joined her at the podium. His eyes cycled through colors that hadn't existed in either species' vision 10 years ago, colors born from the harmony of combined perception. Today, he announced, we activate the final arcade token. Together, they inserted the last remaining piece of Dr. Zhang's legacy into a console that looked like a fusion of every gaming system ever created. The token had appeared mysteriously on their original arcade cabinet 1 week ago, with a simple note, ready for New Game Plus. The moment the token clicked into place, every arcade station in the network lit up with the same message. Pre-TTUR Savor Net TWUP KK Liberation So Complete. Dimensional Bearia P Oro Toxiolist Disabled. Colas make CAD U and Lomated. Now loading. The space between spaces rippled. The energy beings began to pulse with excitement as new bridges formed, not just between Earth and the Zaxian homeworld, but to thousands of other points in the universe. Each connection looked like a strand of light from an ancient video game, pixelated and pure. By learning to play together, Sarah realized, reading the data streaming in, we didn't just pass their test, we unlocked their network. The arcade stations transformed, their surfaces becoming transparent like the screens of old handheld games held up to the light. Through them, they could see other species on distant worlds, all facing their own versions of the precursor test. Some were fighting the black ships, others were struggling with forced evolution protocols. Trex's eyes settled on a new color, one that meant both responsibility and joy. We can help them, he said. Show them how to find the harmony in their own games. The energy beings swirled in agreement, their forms creating patterns that looked remarkably like the high score tables from classic arcade games. They had been keeping track all along, tracking every species' progress toward understanding. Sarah touched the final arcade screen, where the original Space Invaders game still played on endless loop. But now she could see what the pixels truly were: star maps, coordinates, guides to every growing civilization in the galaxy. The precursors never left, she said softly. They just went to play in a higher arcade. And now we're the ones who help others reach the next level, Terex finished. Above them, the black ships reappeared one final time. But instead of mysterious monitors, they were now clearly what they had always been: arcade cabinets floating in space, waiting for new players to learn the ultimate game, the game of cosmic harmony. Dr. Zhang's voice echoed one last time through the network. Game over. No, game eternal. And somewhere in the space between spaces, in the harmony between differences, in the endless dance of separate notes creating a greater symphony, the next round was about to begin. Hi SCORECT. Earth ZAXINALINC. ICFIEMANT Cosmic Cooperation. NNSSERT2OKN.